introduce yourself and then also talk about your mission moving forward.
Okay. Well, my name is Muhammad, Abdul Rahman Muhammad. Um, I was born in South Carolina. Um, yeah, I was born down the road. And I left there as a young boy and I moved to Denver, Colorado. I finished high school and I finished college here at Denver University. And I studied chemistry and biology. I doubled major, but I also studied history. My father, my father had taught me history of his ancestors when I was a young boy, and his father had been born on a plantation in Aiken, South Carolina. He was born in 1850 and he lived to 1950, little before I was born, but he was enslaved for 15 years. So my father attended the Rosenwald schools. The Rosenwald schools were the first schools that were created for formerly enslaved Africans, and the majority of them were created in South Carolina. So I grew up in a household that were materially poor, but culturally we were wealthy. My father was very erudite because he was born during that time, say, from 1865 to 1930, blacks reduced their illiteracy rate by 70%. Because at the signing of the 13th Amendment in 1863, only 2% of black people could read and write. No people in the history of the world can boast of such achievements that black people can. And so my father, he never taught me or my siblings to read anything, but yet every day he read in our presence. So when I was a young boy, I wanted to know, I was curious, what was he doing reading these papers? And before I knew it, I never went to kindergarten because you had to pay, and I had 10 siblings, and I was the seventh one. And so I never went to kindergarten, but when I went to first grade, your little brother was the top student. And that was very unique because I was the most melanated. And although among the Geechee Gullah people, the most melanated people in America are from South Carolina, because that's where the majority of us were shipped and disembarked in South Carolina, from Africa and also from Barbados. Okay, so you have the Geechee Gullah, and then you have Bajans coming into South Carolina. Because when the sugarcane industry bottomed out in Barbados, because Barbados was the seat of the British Empire in the Caribbean. By that time, Jamaica was a Spanish colony. Okay, so those Africans who were enslaved in Barbados, they brought them to South Carolina to engage in the rice culture. You see, the Geechee Gullah people are the rice eaters, but they're the rice cultivators. So they taught the Portuguese brought them there, but they taught the Europeans how to grow and cultivate rice. And they named that rice grain Carolina. In Guinea, when they brought the Africans to South Carolina is named after King George, who Georgia is named after, because he was the king. He was the king of England at that time. You see? So they named that rice grain Carolina. Okay, I don't know if you ever heard of Carolina rice. Okay, but anyway, getting back to that, I attended Denver University, where I graduated, and then I went to Rutgers to study, but I left and I went to Senegal, and when I came back, I decided I wanted to go into education. So I went to the New School in New York City, and I got a Master's of Science in teaching from the New School University in New York. And I went to study at Rutgers, as I mentioned, for my PhD, but I left Rutgers and now I'm finishing up my PhD in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, medicine. And now what I'm doing, I've taught in the university at Rutgers, but now what I want to do is, and I've already done this, is develop STEAM academies, science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, and medicine, and teach young black people proper education. Proper education, as I said, is the knowledge of civilization, of African civilization, black civilization, the history of humanity, the knowledge of the universe, and we must have knowledge of all of the sciences. So right now, that is my work, and that's the main scope of what I am trying to achieve right now among our people and among people of goodwill.